Welcome to another episode of the California Automated Drone Podcast, where we talk to experts in the field about their experiences in the drone industry. I'm so excited to be here today as your host. My name is Josh Friedman, and we are here with Marque Cornblatt of the Aerial Sports League. Stay tuned.
There are drone sports community groups in just about every community.
Oh, I want to be a drone service provider, and I'm going to go do drone mapping. Well, for what?
All of the things that I've done is to promote safety for our industry.
But if you really want to go in depth into understanding what you're doing, community college, along with online learning, is the way to go.
Hey, Marque, how's it going today?
Hi, Josh.
I'm so glad you're here. And today, Marque, you and I are going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects in the drone industry, and that is sports and racing. There's a lot of different things that we can do with drones today in sports. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've done for drone sports?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. We've been pioneering drone sports for almost a decade now. We started so far back in the early days of commercial drones that really there weren't drones available for drone sports. And we were, my friends and I were all kind of robot builders and fans of BattleBots. And so the first thing we did when we bought our drones was fly them and smash them together. And that didn't go so well, but it definitely sparked a desire that we had to kind of build a better mousetrap and build drones that were really designed to take the abuse of sports and play and fun. Because at that point, most drones were so fragile that if you even looked at them funny, they would break. And so there was a kind of arms race developed to build a better drone, more robust drone. It was really interesting to see all of these engineers and RC pilots really apply their passion to the early days of drones and building drones from scratch, designing and 3D printing parts. And out of that, a huge community of drone pioneers developed.
And how did you get started in the building side, the robotics side, and racing?
Well, my background is in art and technology, and so I was building robots. And like I said, we were kind of playing with robots, smashing them together and having fun. And when we started doing that, we basically created some viral videos, or we created videos that went viral, I should say. And we started a meetup group, and we had hundreds and hundreds of people showing up to each group. This was before the days of drone racing, when the video systems, the FPV goggles, weren't as commonly available. And so most of the games were done inside of kind of cages or enclosed spaces where we would have almost like an MMA style ring. Once people started putting the cameras on drones and we started racing them, we started flying outside more frequently or going into huge warehouses. And from that, we started doing regular sanctioned drone racing events and leagues and weekly meetups. And that started happening elsewhere throughout the country and throughout the world, really, at a kind of a zeitgeist moment where everyone started discovering these amazing technologies. And there was a period of about 2 years where the drone sports world was really on fire and leading people's perception of drones. Most people hadn't seen or heard of them before, but the drone sports world really introduced a lot of people to what drones were capable of doing.
Yeah, you guys got in really early as well. Being this is California Automated, just tell us for a second, where are you based?
I'm in the Bay Area, and our meetup group here started basically in the Bay Area. But we've produced events and meetups here, Southern California, New York, all over the country.
So let's take a look at what one of those events looks like. I know there's still a lot of people that I don't think have ever seen a drone race and understand how it works. If you want, do you want to go ahead and play the video and then you could talk over it and tell us a little bit about FPV and what that is and how it works? Or do you want to give us an introduction and then play the video? What do you prefer?
It's probably best that I just talk over the video.
Go right ahead.
And so I'll get started here. And so what you're looking at here are the pilots in the pits of a drone race. They're behind a netted arena, a netted curtain. And here's the beginning of the race. This is at Golden One Arena in Sacramento. And we took over the whole arena for this race. You can see the drones are lit up and color-coded. And so this way the spectators can easily follow which drone is in which place. The announcers, the volume is down, but the announcers are able to call the race. And it looks like there's no one here, that the stadium is actually empty. And that's not actually true. We emptied the lower part of the bowl, But the VIP area, which is up higher on the second and third level, was filled with hundreds and hundreds of spectators that were invited to this race. And we put them all safely out of harm's way because these drones are capable of hitting speeds of well over 100 miles an hour. And as you can see from this part of the video, the live feed that the pilots are looking at in this particular interior location were pretty rough. This was one of the more difficult locations for seeing that live feed. But these pilots are so good and they have such experience dealing with that low quality video image that they can actually anticipate where they are, where the drone's going to be, and actually fly with these high levels of precision at these high speeds, even though they can almost hardly see.
Well, and that technology has improved, significantly, I think, over the past couple of years, and we're going to continue to see big improvements as, the FPV world goes from 1080p, to 4K. We start getting really, really high quality feeds, but as the technology grows, right?
Indeed, the quality of the video feed over the last 4 or 5 years really has been driven by this desire to turn these tiny, small racing drones essentially into cinematic capable platforms. So that instead of using a very stable DJI platform that's kind of up in the air and hovering, if you will, these drones can be flown in very tight, precise locations in and around people, and they can still deliver that 4K broadcast quality video in a way that the kind of traditional drone cinematography.
Well, and this is a conversation I'm having with a lot of pilots that are in digital media right now, which is that if you're not doing FPV for cinema, you're going to fall way behind. That, the days of the look of a camera forward while the drone flies and does little, not little, but does tilts and pans are kind of going by the wayside as we want to see more dive bombs and flips and different sort of cinematic techniques that you just can't do with a DJI, but you could do with a racing drone. So do you see a lot of people that start racing kind of then getting into other industries as well?
Yeah, in fact, going from the racing and the freestyle world into the world of cinematography actually seems like a natural progression for careers for people who want to be professional drone racing pilots or professional drone sports pilots. There's so many opportunities for flying drones professionally where you're not flying with your hands on the sticks the way you are in sports. But that FPV cinematography absolutely requires the highest level of skill to fly manually while still having that sense of cinematic skills to get the shot. And so that's an extremely unique skill set that's really coming into its own just now. And it's a really compelling opportunity for pilots to earn some money, develop their reputation, and find a career as aerial cinematographers.
That's great. So let's pause this one for a second. And, what I'm really interested in is that the people who are racers, a lot of them, there's a lot of different backgrounds I'm finding. Some people, just like to fly RC, airplanes and helicopters, and then they get into drone racing. Other people are robotics experts that decided, hey, I can, use my soldering skills and my building skills to, apply this to a drone that I'm building for a race. What would you say are some of the most important skill sets for drone racers to have, either to get involved or to be really great at the sport?
The great thing about drone sports is that it forces you to become at least a generalist across a wide range of STEAM topics and skills, as well as performance skills, athletic skills, and performance and competitive capabilities as well. But we find that some people who are drawn to sports drones want to be the pilots. They want to be in the cockpit, in the driver's seat, while a whole number of other folks are really interested in building and engineering and designing and problem solving. And so for some people, it's all about the thrill of racing or the thrill of the combat game. But for a huge number of people, it's really about being part of this technology or based sport and driving that sport forward in a number of ways. Some people love it just so that they can be trackside as an announcer, and drone sports gives them a game and a sport that they can announce for. Other people absolutely love to be the technician, part of a team, keeping that drone operating and tuned and working perfectly, but they don't fly. Some of the most incredible drone designers and hardware developers and manufacturers don't fly or very infrequently fly, but they still are driven by the world of drone sports to drive
Well, I
their
see this being
skills forward.
similar to like NASCAR, where everyone knows who the driver is, but the driver alone, as we know from the movie Cars, Lightning McQueen by himself can't succeed. He needs the whole team around him, right? And it's probably, it's exactly the same. One more question before we get to the next part of our segment. Where do people go to learn how to do this? I mean, I know, locally, I'm down in Orange County. We're seeing drone racing leagues in middle schools, even as early as elementary school in one of our counties down here.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of the colleges, most of the UC schools I know have, drone racing league as part of their school. But what are some of the places that you would recommend people go to learn how to get involved in drone racing?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head that increasingly access to drone sports is available through schools, after school programs. If your school isn't offering one, I would say press them to launch one because the resources are there for them to do that. If you're impatient and just want to get started without dragging your whole school into it, there are drone sports community groups in just about every community. In America, if you're near a town or a city, there are going to be people who are flying drones for fun and for sports in good weather. In bad weather, they fly the micro drones, the tiny whoops indoors. Increasingly, and we find this to be really true, drone racing simulators on PC are doing an amazing job of kind of replacing the real life drone experience when the weather isn't so good or when you have a broken drone and you still want to fly. And for education, that drone simulator in particular, Velocidrone, has really proven itself to be an indispensable tool for getting your kind of your stick skills together, getting the flight skills. The amount of time and energy and heartbreak you can save by learning to fly in a simulator first before you actually fly the physical drone can't be understated. It's really worth it for anyone looking to fly to start with a
Yeah,
simulator.
a lot of the sport is crashing drones and then, repairing those drones and getting them back up and flying again. So I would imagine the simulator is going to make a huge difference to get used to that first. So you and I are both really involved in drone education as well. We have been for a long time. In fact, that's how we met, was through one of my drone education conferences. And now you're taking that to the next level with a nonprofit. Tell us about your nonprofit, the Museum of Future Sports. What is the Museum of Future Sports?
Well, we found that working with drones in ASL, we were doing educational programs with schools, with after school programs, and just with hobbyists who wanted to learn, working through museums and on our own. And the size of the growth of drone education, or the interest in drones through education, was so overwhelming that we actually launched a nonprofit called the Museum of Future Sports. And while we still use drones as a foundational tool and almost like a Pied Piper like draw, we also explore virtual reality, robotics, RC cars, media production on PC to kind of expand the idea of the power of play to introduce STEAM education to a whole new generation. Drones are still like that Pied Piper draw in, but it's also, just part of this larger suite. Drone racing is a lot like esports, and esports is popular. We wanted to be able to kind of combine those two. We've produced a number of esports events and competitions using that PC simulator Velocidrone. And so the crossover between esports and drones and robot combat, the distinctions are blurring so much that the Museum of Future Sports was launched to kind of create new paradigms of how to mix these technologies together, all in the service of introducing STEM and STEAM technologies to kids and really getting them independently passionate about these tools and technologies so that they are set on a path for success in education and in their future jobs.
I love it. Before we watch the next video that you're about to queue up, you've mentioned a couple times now robot combat, drone combat, and I know this is something that you've been working on for a long time. I remember even back in 2018, seeing these hard, really strong frames that I believe were 3D printing. For drone combat. But what are we talking about here with drone combat? It sounds like something I don't want my children doing at home. Is that right?
Yes and no. We find that we lean into the kind of dangerous idea of drone combat because A, it's fun and exciting. If you think about BattleBots on TV or Robot Wars on TV, where people build, design, and engineer these solutions to beat each other in the ring, drone combat's the same idea, except we're flying these robots and combating them at each other. In the early days, it was basically creating drones that could kind of bang into each other and hopefully stay in the air while the other one crashed. But over time, the arms race around that really developed into both creating defensive solutions for the drones, but also engineering offensive solutions, weaponry for the drones. And our rule of thumb has always been you can introduce anything you want as a weapon into the drone combat games as long as it's safe enough for spectators and players that no one's going to get hurt. And as long as the net or cage that we erect can sustain it, then anything goes. And so in different competitions over the years, we've had net launchers, that drones that literally shot nets at each other. We've had drones with paintball guns and other kind of weaponry mounted to it. We've had drones with flamethrowers mounted to them. And we've put them in the combat ring, and we encourage people to develop these weapons. A, they're destructive, but B, every time you crash a drone, you have to fix it, repair it, retune it, modify that design. And so we find that combat is actually a real accelerator towards getting pilots and kids thinking about design and engineering solutions. Yeah. Not to mention the fact that it's so fun and so thrilling. One of the most interesting parts of combat is that the drones are frequently hitting each other and flipping over or crashing. And so we established essentially a 90-second repair clock. And so when the drone crashes, a pilot or his teammate has 90 seconds to go into the ring, make whatever repairs they can, replace batteries, replace propellers, or even deeper repairs, and flip it over and get it flying within 90 seconds. When we first started doing that, we thought that was going to be essentially like timeout, like downtime, where the audience kind of their attention fades away. To our surprise, the incredible tactical skills used in those 90-second repairs became more thrilling than the combat in a lot of cases. And when you would see a drone hit the ground and kind of shatter into what seems like a million pieces, and then within 90 seconds, they've actually managed to fix that drone and get it back flying. In some ways, that's much, much more thrilling than watching it crash.
Man. I mean, I'm thinking just, entrepreneurship, ingenuity, engineering, robotics, building, this is the beginning of a lot of things for a lot of people. Right?
Yeah, it's true. It really inspires a number of pilots to become engineers, a number of kids to start considering careers in drones. We've actually had kids who've been part of our community since they were preteens in, say, 2013, 2014. And so now as young adults, they're actually co-founders of drone startups, building drones that can do warehouse inventory management, or working in search and rescue. One of our young pilots is actually now a freelance designer working for NASA contractors, actually designing objects and artifacts that are being put into space missions. And he's not even 22
it's
years
definitely
old.
It's what's called the gateway, to a lot of other opportunities for sure. I want to get back just really quick to close out with I have to look over. I apologize. The Museum of Future Sports. Once again, I believe you have a video that you want to share, telling us a little bit more about that, what it is. Again, while he's queuing that up, it's a wonderful opportunity, as a nonprofit organization, for you to add just another element of what you guys are doing with drone sports. But go ahead, tell us what are we looking at here?
So this is the Museum of Future Sports. This is kind of like an explainer overview video because, quite frankly, when people hear the phrase Museum of Future Sports, two things happen. One is they don't know what it is, but they do get excited by the ideas and of what it sounds like. So this is an explainer video that shows how we work with drones. Here we are showing some drone combat and some racing. But we also work with robotics. We do live events. We do educational robotics. We put on sanctioned races with large prizes and huge dollar amounts that get distributed to local charities. And so the Museum of Future Sports is really a whole new way of looking at the power of play to introduce kids to STEAM education by really driving home the idea that all of this is fun. And if you're having fun and you want to continue having fun, then these STEAM education topics, these engineering skills, they're going to come naturally to you. At the same time, you can come and have fun and not worry about being educated, because this is just fun. And if you want to come and sort of fly with us or do drone combat, or, the idea that we could even have like Friday night, happy hour, and, have millennials coming and just sort of enjoying themselves in the same venue, where during the day and during the week we're doing more specific education. We feel like it's a kind of a 360-degree opportunity to create a venue that really serves the local community across almost every demographic, from young kids and after school programs, Saturday morning leagues, and then evening activities for grown-ups.
I love it. I mean, it's just, again, you guys putting yourself out there, taking it to the next level, and having the understanding that I think that education is really the key behind a lot of this, and that the more people that we educate, the more people we bring into it, the more we're going to see the innovation. We're going to see more incredible racing. We're going to see higher quality video production, and it just continuing to raise the bar of everything, thanks to the hard work that you guys are doing out there in the Bay Area.
Thanks.
Mark, one thing I want to address real quick before we conclude is that you've been using the word STEAM as opposed to STEM, which is a movement that's been around for a long time. I think that most people are familiar nationally with STEM education: science, technology, engineering, math. Tell us about the A in STEAM and how that applies to what you guys are doing.
Sure, absolutely. Well, the A in STEAM stands for art, which is often overlooked when people talk about the value of STEM programs to encourage kids. And a lot of times the creativity is left out of that conversation. So by including A in STEM, turning it into STEAM, it opens the door to using these same tools and technologies, but for kids who may not want to be competitive, but may want to be creative. A lot of these tools are still available to them. So adding the A into STEM to create STEAM is really much more inclusive. And it seems more natural. My background, long before I got into technology for sports, was using technology for art. I was making robotics for galleries, and I was using found technologies. And so for me, the exclusion of the A in STEM always felt out of place. And so over the last few years, as STEM has been turning into STEAM, that's definitely fighting the good fight.
And I agree, and there's a debate of, STEM and the arts versus STEAM. Either way, as you know, I'm a musician as well, way before all of this, and I very much, believe that the arts is part of STEM education and needs to be. So I applaud your guys' efforts of everything you put together up there. Well, thank you so much, Mark, and thanks to everybody for watching and listening. If you want more information about drone careers, where you can get educated to help your drone career take off, please check out CaliforniaAutomated.com. Find us on social media, like, share, subscribe, and learn. This has been another awesome episode of the California Automated Drone Podcast. Again, I am your host, Josh Friedman, reminding you to fly safe and fly often.